All right. Hello, everyone. And thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partners Fall 2023 Investor Conference. My name is Robert Blum, Managing Partner of Lytham Partners. During this webcast, we welcome Precision Optics, ticker symbol of POCI on the NASDAQ. And joining us today from the company is its President and CEO, Joe Forkey. Before I turn the floor over to Joe to run through the company's slide presentation, I want to remind everyone that management is available for one-on-one meetings later today. If you've not already signed up and would like to do so, send me an email. That's Blum, B-L-U-M, at lythampartners.com, or visit our website, lythampartners.com/virtual. Click on the one-on-one meeting request button, and we'll look to get you taken care of. So with that said, Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm really glad to be here today to tell you about Precision Optics Corporation. Precision Optics Corporation, as the name implies, is an optics company. Everything we do has something to do with optics. We've been in business since 1982, so we're in our 41st year. We've done lots of things over the years, and we're in a mode now where we are growing relatively quickly. We set up a new business strategy a number of years ago, and it seems to be taking hold. And so we're quite excited with where we're going, and I'm happy to have a couple minutes to tell you about that today. Of course, we have the lawyer's slide, so everyone can read this at their leisure. Precision Optics works in a number of very specific sub-disciplines within optics. Optics is a very broad discipline. There are a couple of very specific areas that we work in, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And we work also in some very specific markets, most notably medical device, and more recently some in defense aerospace. The specific areas that we work in are in three areas within optics. The first one is micro-optics. This is an area where we can make optics, some of the smallest optics in the world, small prisms and lenses and such, and then we can incorporate those together into an entire system that allows us to make very, very small endoscopes and very, very small imaging systems. We also have a special expertise in the area of 3D endoscopes. We did the very first endoscopes for robotic surgery many years ago, and we've developed some significant IP around that. Making 3D endoscopes is much more challenging than making traditional endoscopes, and so that's another area that we focus in. And then thirdly, with the advent of so-called CMOS sensors that have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, we've been using these very small CMOS sensors with our small optics and sometimes with our 3D technology to be able to make digital imaging systems, and in particular, digital imaging endoscopes, which have cameras on the distal end of the endoscope. So these are the three technical areas that we focus on. I'll talk about them in a little more detail in just a minute. But we take those three areas that we focus on in terms of technology, and then we use those in a very well-defined way in order to engage the markets that we work in. Again, being focused with our sales and marketing resources, we focus very heavily in medical device, which is where we see the biggest opportunities for these particular technologies. More recently, we've also been getting into some applications in defense aerospace. But when we engage with our customer, our business model is one where we recognize that we're a technology company, that our core competency is in technology. And so we engage with our customers by showing them the unique technology that we have, the things that we can do from a design and manufacturing standpoint of technical instruments that our competitors just can't do. And so we'll show our customers what these technologies are. And if the technologies that we have are a good fit for enabling the procedure or the device that our customer is trying to accomplish, then we'll engage with them preferably very early in their development stage. So we basically will engage them first through the design process. We'll ask them to cover our time and materials costs with some nominal profit as we go through that design process. And we'll use the unique technology that we have as we design their product. And then once the product gets into production, we're the producer of choice because we've basically designed our technology into their product. We've designed our product in such a way that we can make good use of the technology that we have, not only for designing products, but the technology we have for building these products. And I'll get into that a little bit in some of the later slides. So the ideal customer is one who comes to us very early on. We work with them to design their product. We maintain ownership and control of the IP that's related to the technology that we bring in. And then we transition the product from the development stage into production. And for medical devices in particular, the lifetime of products once they get into production tends to be quite long. So the growth strategy for the company is that we use our engineering resource, our product development resource, if you like, to develop new products that incorporate our technology, and then we move those products into production because the production lifetime is very long. As we move more and more products into production, we continue to grow and increase the revenue, the overall revenue of the company. In addition to this organic approach to growing, we also have expanded and accelerated our growth through a couple of acquisitions. I'll talk about these as we go through. We acquired a company called Ross Optical in 2019. That was quite successful from a revenue standpoint and gross margin and EBITDA standpoint. It also broadened the capabilities that we have to include an ability to source and to build small optical subassemblies. And so that was a very successful acquisition. And then more recently, we acquired a company called Lighthouse Imaging just about 2 years ago to expand our electrical engineering capabilities, particularly with regard to the digital imaging part of the business. And that also has been a very successful acquisition. We've also, over the last couple of years, grown our sales capacity quite substantially, and this has helped to increase the size of what I call the funnel, the sales funnel, or the number of opportunities that we have to talk to customers. We've also invested in our technical resources, in particular in our engineering group, and that has allowed us to increase the rate at which we can develop new products, which really is the pump that drives the overall business model of developing products and then putting them into production. And then finally, we've updated our production capacity so that as we develop more products in the engineering part of the business, the product development part of the business, we can move those into production and we can increase our production capacity to support the increase in the number of programs that get into production. As I said right at the beginning, the company is over 40 years old. We've had a lot of ups and downs over that time period. The last 10 years or so is the time period when we started to institute this new business model. It required that we take a few years to update our technical capabilities and build some IP around those particular capabilities, and then to get our products out into market. And what we're finding today, and I'll show this in some of the later slides, is that the business model is now taking hold, and we're seeing some substantial growth because of that. This slide is a good example of that. You can see that our revenue, total revenue, has grown quite substantially over the last 5 or 6 years. Some of this is through the acquisition of Ross Optical and Lighthouse Imaging. Those events happened basically between 2019, 2020, 2021 to 22. But all of the growth in the past year, from 22 to 23, was organic. And really, it was growth that came out of the increase in the engineering capability, which is shown here in the gray columns, and then an increase in the number of products that were in production, which is shown in the blue. So those two things combined have driven substantial growth, as I say, over the last 5 or 6 years, but particularly over the last year, where all of that growth was organic. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the particular technologies that we have. So the first area is in the area of micro precision technology. And so what we're talking about here is an ability to make very, very small optics, small lenses and prisms, and to be able to design and build the systems that can be built out of those very small optics. The picture on this slide shows one of the world's smallest cameras. The diameter of the metal sleeve in this case is about 1 millimeter. And inside of that sleeve are a number of lenses. This one probably has 4 or 5 lenses that we fabricated from raw glass and then built into an assembly. The small size has particular benefits in medical device, not surprisingly, particularly in the area of endoscopy, where we can target applications for minimally invasive surgery that just wouldn't be possible without the very small sizes. So you can think of places in the body where the incision size is critically important, These are places like brain surgery, ophthalmology, ear, nose, and throat, cystoscopy or urology, cardiac applications, any place where the doctor wants to go in through a vessel or an orifice that already exists but is very small, or a place where the size of the incision is really critical. And so we've seen a lot of interest as we have demonstrated the ability to make these very small optics and these very small systems from the medical device community. There is also now some interest on the defense and aerospace side to get smaller and smaller, because anything that's used that's either airborne or launched into space, of course, there's a critical requirement to keep the size and the mass down, because both of those things limit what else you can put on the vehicle that you're using. So there's a significant interest in the defense aerospace industry, and we're just starting to get into that market now. 3D endoscopes are really tightly correlated with robotic surgery systems. Intuitive Surgical, of course, was really the innovator for many years in the robotic surgery space. We actually designed and built the very first 3D endoscope for Intuitive Surgical more than 20 years ago. And we developed some technology then, and we've updated that technology since then to continue to be able to build 3D endoscopes. There are a number of companies that can make standard so-called 2D endoscopes. That technology for designing and building traditional 2D endoscopes is fairly mature, but the technology to be able to build a 3D endoscope is orders of magnitude more challenging than the technology that's required to build 2D endoscopes. And without going into all the details, the difficulty is that for a 3D endoscope, you have to present different images to the right eye and the left eye, and if they're not perfectly matched, you'll end up, the user will end up with a headache after about 15 or 20 minutes. So the technical requirements, the specifications on the imaging systems for a 3D endoscope are much tighter than they are for 2D endoscopes. And so the technology that we've developed is quite unique, and we're one of only a handful of companies in the world that can make a good, high quality medical validated 3D endoscope. And so this is the second area of technology that we focus on quite substantially. The third area is a more general area of digital imaging. And the idea here is that instead of taking an image and relaying it outside of the body, as we had done with traditional endoscope technology, we can now take silicon sensors, so-called CMOS sensors, that can convert a light image into electronics, into an electrical signal, and we can take those sensors, which are now small enough to put in the distal end of an endoscope, and we can build an endoscope around these very small sensors and optics that we design and manufacture. The rest of the system requires an expertise with electronics, and in particular digital imaging electronics, that allows us to carry the image back from the distal tip of the endoscope all the way back to the proximal end of the endoscope and outside of the body. And then importantly, to take those electronic signals into to handle and process those electronic signals so that we get a good high quality image that comes up on the screen for the doctor to see. And all of that work that takes us from the electronic sensor all the way back to the image that the doctor or the surgeon sees on the screen is the area of digital imaging. And so we've developed a lot of technology around digital imaging, and that's really the third area of expertise that we focus on. In addition to these technologies, we have a couple of traditional applications that we continue to provide product in to our customers. There are a couple of customers in particular that I want to point out, one of which we've been providing a spinal product to for over 10 years. The second of which is a product that's used for otolaryngology, it's called, which is an ability to see the vocal cords to deal with vocal cord issues that people have. That's a product that really is the market leader and that we've been providing for over 20 years. And so the main point I want to make here is, in addition to having a base of business that has been going for a long time, we also These are also good examples of the potential lifetime of products in the medical device space once they get into production. We made our first acquisition, as I mentioned before, in the summer of 2019. This was an acquisition of a company called Ross Optical. Ross Optical manufactures and sources from around the world simple optical components and optical subassemblies. So while the rest of the company really focuses on entire systems and works on system level design and system level manufacturing, Ross Optical focuses on individual components or small subassemblies. And so the marriage of these two companies made a lot of sense because Ross Optical had lots of customers who would come to them and ask for a system-wide design and manufacturing that they were not able to satisfy. And so now when that happens, they can send those customers to the rest of our company, the Precision Optics part of the company, and we can satisfy those requirements. So the acquisition gave us more access, particularly to the defense aerospace area, where we think that there are more opportunities. In addition, the acquisition of Ross Optical got us a broader sourcing network and an ability to source small individual components and subassemblies that we can then use in our entire system. So it was a really great combination. Ross Optical has been profitable since before we acquired them and after we acquired them, and they achieved all of the requirements that were necessary for them to satisfy all of their earnouts over the last 3 years. So this was quite a good acquisition. All the details are here, and I'm happy to talk to people about details of the acquisition and the structure if anyone would like to. The second acquisition that we did was just about 2 years ago in October of 2021. This acquisition was done for a very different reason. This one was really done as a strategic acquisition in order to get access to the technology of the company we acquired called Lighthouse Imaging. Now, Lighthouse Imaging is a company that had been around for almost as long as Precision Optics. We knew Lighthouse Imaging very well. I like to call them a friendly competitor for many years before we put these two companies together. Lighthouse Imaging had developed a capability to design and build medical endoscopes similar to what POC had put together, but POC had focused on the front end optics, the glass optics and the fiber optic illumination. Lighthouse Imaging had focused in large part on the electronics associated with the CMOS sensors. So putting these two companies together really put the two technical teams together so that we can be much more competitive when it comes to talking to our customers, because we have a broader technical capability, particularly in the area of digital imaging, which I talked about just a minute ago. We've already seen a number of customers who have come to us and have told us that they knew both POC and Lighthouse Imaging before the acquisition. Neither of us independently would have gotten their business, but now because we can do the entire system, they are coming to us. So the market has responded very positively to this acquisition, to this merger of these two technical teams, and we're very excited about where we can go moving forward with the two companies together. This shows pictorially what I was just talking about. With the acquisition of Lighthouse Imaging and with all of the work that our combined company now has done over the years, we provide to our customer an ability to design and to manufacture an entire medical device imaging system. So we're not making just the couple lenses that go on the front end. We're not making just the fiber optic illuminator. We're not making just the electronics that go on the back end. We're able to design and then build the entire system that goes from really the wall plug into the capital equipment, the generation of the light that's going to be propagated down the fiber optics to go into the body, and then the capturing of that light with the lenses that form an image, and the conversion of that image from an optical signal to an electronic signal, and then the processing of that electronic signal to present an image on the screen. We can do the whole thing now, which allows us to move up the value chain for our supply for our customers, and it allows us to compete better in the marketplace and provide our customers an entire system level product as opposed to subassemblies. And so that has great value in the marketplace and therefore great value to our company from a competitive standpoint. We also are integrated vertically from the standpoint of being able to take a program from the development phase all the way through to the mass manufacture. And you may remember in one of the first slides, I talked about our unique business model where we engage with our customers early on in their development process so that we can make good use of the technology that we have to enable the realization of the performance that our customers are looking for in their products. So we want to be able to support the customer from the early design phase all the way through to the mass manufacture. That means that we have to have people and processes and infrastructure to be able to satisfy all of the work that has to be done from the very early conception stage, where you have to be engaged with the engineering team, with a team that is thinking outside the box and that understands how our technology can be incorporated and designed into our customers' products. We need to have things like our own machine shop, which is used almost exclusively to make parts, to build a prototype very quickly, which is important for customers who are going into the medical device space. We also need the machine shop in order to be able to make custom tools and fixtures that may embody some of our IP that we don't want to have go outside of our company. We also want to be able to have our design engineers sitting next to our manufacturing staff so that when we're designing a product that can be manufactured. It's very easy to design a product on a computer screen, but designing a product that then can be turned into a manufacturing process that can be very efficient with high yields and low cost all requires a design process that is informed by the manufacturing group, which is sitting side by side with the design engineers as they're going through the design process. So at the end of the day, we have all of these capabilities in one company, and that has great benefit to our customer because they come to us in the beginning when they're in the conception stage, and they know that they have a partner that will work with them all the way through to mass manufacturing. Given the business model that we have, where we engage with our customers early on in the design process, and we work with our customers to get the product through the prototype phase, through the regulatory phase, through the pilot build phase, and into production. One of the things that we always are very interested in is how busy our product development pipeline is, or our engineering pipeline, if you like. And so this is a slide that shows a number of programs that we are working on today. Those of you who have followed the company will recognize this slide because we've been talking about it for a number of years. On the whole, you'll recognize that many of these arrows have moved farther to the right, which is an indication that more and more products are moving closer and closer to production, which ultimately is the goal. Now, I've talked in recent earnings calls and such that we've had some programs that have fallen out because they either have excess inventory or because there was some issue with their program. We have some other programs that have come in. And we've talked about this in the context of having some ups and downs in revenue. But on the whole, if you look at this slide as compared to the same slide that we had a year ago or 2 years ago, what one would recognize is that the number of arrows that are moving to the right is increasing, and the size of the overall pipeline is increasing as well. So without going into all the details, I'll just point out the top 3 arrows here: the cardiovascular endoscope, the otoscopy device number 1, and the micro-optics components are all products that have been in production for a number of years. The demand and the size of orders dropped a little bit during the pandemic, but those have fully recovered, and so they continue to be a great base of business that we've had going for a number of years. And by and large, we see those in general increasing in revenue level. We announced over the past year a number of these 3 programs having come to us with the biggest orders that they have ever in the past. So those 3 are in production. Our goal, of course, is to get many more of these arrows into production. So again, you see the next 5 or 6 or 7 arrows underneath that running from the optics component line, which is a defense aerospace program, all the way down to the ENT scope which is a medical device, ear, nose, and throat with a well-funded startup. Those 7 programs are all in the pilot build production. That means that the prototypes have been completed, and that the prototypes satisfy the requirements of the customer. We're in the pilot build, which effectively is the first build that's done under the production infrastructure. And so those pilot units will be tested by the customer. They'll finish their regulatory requirements, and then those programs we expect will move into production. In addition, I'll just point out a couple of programs closer to the bottom. There's the ureteroscope, which is 4 or 5 from the bottom. There's the ophthalmoscope, which is just below that one. And then there's cystoscope number 2. These are all programs that have come onto the pipeline in the last 3 to 6 months. And a couple of these are with very well-known large medical device companies whose names everyone would recognize. So the good news is we have programs that have been in the product pipeline for some time that are moving closer and closer to production. And we have a number of newer programs that are coming in to the pipeline that will run through the pipeline for the next year or so, and then be in a position to roll into production. So this is the engineering pipeline is doing exactly what we want. The programs that are in there are moving closer to production, and the funnel is giving us new programs to come in on the backside. We've talked about the business model already. This slide talks a little bit more about it. We needed to get to critical mass where we filled that pipeline, because the first few years of this business model, we had to go out and show the industry the technologies that we had and bring in the first few customers. I like to call it priming the pump. And so we've gotten through that phase, and now the engineering pipeline is very robust. Our engineering team is fully saturated. We continue to work on hiring more engineers and growing that engineering team, because that ultimately is the pump that drives the growth of the company. But we've now reached that critical mass. We're moving products into production. Once the products get into production, they stay for a long time. And so we expect to see, all in all, continuous growth. There will be some ups and downs from quarter to quarter. But generally speaking, we see this business model working well, and we expect long-term growth from the business model and from the opportunities that we already have in the engineering pipeline. The micro optics, 3D and digital imaging systems, we focus on the medical device space, as I've already said. We are starting to look more and more now at the defense aerospace market, because we have a couple of customers who found us. We believe that with a targeted effort, we will be able to find more opportunities in the defense aerospace market. But today, most of our business comes from medical device. And what we're seeing is that the minimally invasive surgical market is continuing to grow. There's a new segment of that market, which is single-use endoscopes. We're well positioned to work in single use. In fact, we have 2 programs that we've talked about publicly that represent our first programs in single use. And those are moving along well. So there are many different areas in the body, which is what this slide shows, that can make use of minimally invasive surgery. As I mentioned before, it's the places here that require very small incisions, or that go through very small, naturally existing orifices, that are the areas that are ideally suited to the technology that we have. And those tend to be the areas where there's a lot of activity, because doctors and surgeons are always pushing the envelope in terms of what can be done, and going to smaller and smaller sizes to get to places in the body that we haven't been able to get to before is one of the areas where there's a lot of activity and a lot of growth, and we're well positioned to be able to support that. Going forward, our strategy covers a number of different specific areas. I'll run through this sort of line by line, just to talk about the strategic directions that we're focused on these days. So the first thing, of course, is to take the products that we've already commercialized and to increase efficiency and yield, and continue to grow the margins on those particular products. To that end, and recognizing that the company is growing and that we need more senior management, we established a chief operating officer position and hired someone into that position about 4 or 5 months ago. We've talked about this publicly. The person that we found, Mahesh Lawande, is a perfect fit for this. It took us a long time to find the right person, but he's fully engaged now, and he's working on managing a large part of the operation, one of the things that he and all of us are working on is continuing to drive efficiencies with the programs that are already in production. The second area, obviously, is to continue to move the pipeline projects through the engineering pipeline, through the product development process. We continue to grow our engineering team in order to continue to increase the rate at which we can move those projects through the engineering pipeline. In addition to growing the engineering team to be able to move products through the pipeline as quickly as possible, we also continue to enhance the engineering team and more generally to enhance our technical capabilities in order to maintain our competitive advantage. We are a technology company, and so we have to be sure that we always stay out in front of the technology that's available in the marketplace. So there's a balance here, of course. We're not gonna go and spend enormous amounts on R&D because we are still a small company and we have to maintain our focus. But we also need to be understanding where the markets are going, and we need to continue to advance our technology so that we remain competitive and so that we anticipate where the market's going to go, so that we have the technology available as the market continues to grow and change and move into new directions. This also is true as we start to look more deliberately at the defense aerospace market. We're not going to abandon the technologies we have. We're going to grow the technologies we have, and the directions that we grow those technologies in will depend on what we find in the defense aerospace market and how we see the medical device market changing over time and growing and developing. I already mentioned we've invested significantly in our sales and marketing team. We've grown our sales and marketing team really from one person and myself, which is what it was about 5 years ago, to a fairly robust team of about 5 or 6 people. 2 of them sort of outside reps, 2 of them account managers, 1 or 2 senior managers to work on managing the sales team and managing the marketing team. So we've grown the sales and marketing team quite substantially. I already mentioned that we've been growing our engineering capabilities as well. One of the other main focus areas for our new COO is to continue the integration of the 2 acquisitions that we made, one 2 years ago and one 4 or 5 years ago. That's Ross Optical and Lighthouse. While the people are well integrated and the people are working well together, we still have some work to do on integrating our procedures so that we can really turn the company into a single company. So we're implementing a new ERP system. We're implementing an updated IT system, and with an eye towards all of these systems being corporate-wide. And again, having a new person in this newly formed position of Chief Operating Officer is ideally timed to be able to move in this direction where we integrate in a more deliberate way all of the resources in these different acquisitions. And then finally, we'll continue to look for other strategic acquisitions or partnerships in order to be able to broaden our capabilities and be able to extend the things that we're already doing. I have said this many times on many of the earnings calls and publicly. There's nothing that says we have to do an acquisition. We're growing quite nicely organically. We're not simply pursuing a roll-up strategy where we take a whole bunch of optics companies and sort of mush them together and get the benefits of economy of scale. We're looking for strategic acquisitions and partnerships that fit together with the technology and the business model that we have to grow the company more quickly. We believe that there are more targets out there, and so we'll continue to look at those, and on an opportunistic basis, we will take advantage of those if and when we find them. There are a number of slides here that cover the financials. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth. I'm happy to talk to people one-on-one if people would like to go through the financials in more detail. But just by way of summary, we already talked about the fact that revenue has gone up quite substantially year over year. Gross margins are also on the whole going up. You can see from a year ago to this past fourth quarter, margins went up quite substantially. You can see we had a jump back in 2018 when some products first went into production for various reasons, because we were expanding our team and we're not fully utilizing some of the resources. Our margins were a little lower. We see those going up now. We expect they'll continue to go up. Our targets are to get to 40% and higher as we get better utilization of some of our resources, and as we see the benefits of some of the optimization efforts that we're working on, we expect these margins to continue to climb. We've been focused on increasing our bottom line profitability. You can see on the left side here, our annual adjusted EBITDA has gone up quite dramatically in the last year. You'll see on the quarterly side, it appears that our EBITDA went down fairly substantially in the fourth quarter of fiscal 2023. But I'll point out the little subnote here that the fourth quarter's EBITDA and the fiscal year EBITDA was negatively impacted by a write-down of a doubtful account that we had for about $464,000. Without that write-down, the fourth quarter would have been marginally positive, and on the year we would have been up closer to about $1 million in EBITDA. So we're seeing the bottom line profitability move higher as we see the revenue going up, which is what we would expect. These last two slides show a lot of the details here, and again, I'm not going to go through all of this in this presentation, but I'd be happy to talk to anyone who would like to go through these things in more detail. So with that, I will thank you all for your attention. I'd be happy to talk with anyone on the one-on-one meetings that are available, and I hope to talk with all of you soon. Thank you very much.
All right, Joe, perfect. Thank you so much for that presentation today. As always, very comprehensive. I just want to remind everyone that if you have not already signed up for a one-on-one meeting and would like to do so, again, you can send me an email, bloom@lythampartners.com, or visit the website, lythampartners.com/virtual. Click on that one-on-one meeting request button, and we will look to get you taken care of. So, Joe, once again, thank you for the time today. We hope everyone enjoys the conference.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks, everyone.